A very good evening and welcome all of you to this class on current affairs. So from this class onwards there will be total 5 to 6 classes on electoral reforms. We are going to cover various headings related to electoral reforms in these serial classes on electoral reforms under the current affairs roundup 365 by me, Jatin Verma. So today being Monday, next class would be on Wednesday, then Friday. Now here electoral reforms, what all gamut of reforms, what all aspects of electoral reforms can you think of? First task, as we always do with regard to all the current affairs issues, is to identify the headings, right? So what all issues you come across when you read anything related to election commission, right? So what all issues are they? The issues are right. These issues are of the nature like poll expenditure limit by election commission. Number one, please write down. The first task is to list down all the issues. Okay, I will be demonstrating in a short while from now as to whatever questions have been asked in the mains examination or prelims, they can be traced to one or the other issues, right? So following the issue based approach to current affairs, this is going to be our strategy towards it. All right. Tracing of issues so that we can live up to the expectation of the question whenever the question is asked on any of these headings. Criminalization of politics, poll expenditure limit, criminalization of politics, appointments issue, ECI appointments issue we have covered in the previous class, right? Then model code of conduct. This is another issue which you come across. Then star campaigner issue, star campaigner. Who is a star campaigner? What is the criteria? Then I told you that another issue could be paid news. Okay, paid news. Then recognition of political parties. This mapping of the topics, subtopics we had done in the previous class as well. Recognition of political parties. Then salient aspects of Law Commission report. Law Commission report number 255. Some of the questions ditto have been picked up from the questionnaire framed by the Law Commission. Last 5 years के अगर हम questions को देखते हैं, some of the questions have been directly picked up from the questionnaire framed by the Law Commission for the circulation to various bodies like Association of Democratic Reforms, etc. Right. Then phenomena of paid news we have covered. Recognition of political parties is done. Totalizer. What is totalizer? This also we are going to see. Nota judgment overall. We will see to it. Defamation issue. Defamation of Rahul Gandhi. An issue arises. How much should be the benchmark threshold of the punishment? 2 years or 3 years? Which would lead to the banning of the candidate from contesting? Which would lead to the disqualification of the person, be it Rahul Gandhi or any other elected representative. Then we are also going to talk about Law Commission, this Representation of People's Act, Section 77, other issues, Representation of People's Act related issue. Representation of People's Act, Conditions of Service Act, Election Commission, Conditions of Service and other provisions related to Election Commission have been dealt with. That ECI Act of 1991 that we dealt with in the previous class, right? So that issue has been covered in its entirety. Defamation of candidates issue. Then public funding of elections. Public funding of elections, like should the elections be funded by from the Consolidated Fund of India? Then other issues to empower Election Commission of India, like should Election Commission's expenditure be charged expenditure? This time the judgment that came in the month of March, on 13th of March, also talks about this issue that Election Commission's expenditure should be declared as charged expenditure, but it is being left to the political parties. It is being left to the Parliament of the day to enact such a law. Supreme Court said that it is not going to go into this. Now one by one we will deal with all such headings. Now first thing first, poll expenditure limit and recognition of political parties is going to be the agenda for the day, right? Recognition of political parties. How political parties are recognized. Number 1. Then poll expenditure limit. Number 2. So first let's deal with poll expenditure limit. How much is the expenditure limit for candidate? Okay. Then along with it, we can deal with the nano topic star campaigner. Who is a star campaigner? Was there any controversy? Prime Minister is the star campaigner for BJP. Kamal Nath is the star campaigner for Congress. It has got something to do with broader topic, that is model code of conduct as well. Now, a very good evening all of you attending this class. Now, let's start writing on poll expenditure issue. So, start writing please. Recently, in let's say in January 2022, the expenditure limit for candidates of Lok Sabha constituencies, the expenditure limit for candidates of Lok Sabha constituencies the expenditure limit for candidates for Lok Sabha constituencies was increased from rupees 54 lakh to rupees 54 lakh to rupees 70 lakh. 54 lakh to rupees 70 lakh. It was earlier. Now this was a huge bracket depending upon state to state, right? ₹54 lakh to 70 lakh rupees depending upon consumer price index of one state to another. 2 rupees 70 lakh to 95 lakhs now. 2 rupees 70 lakh to 95 lakh rupees. Okay. So this is the new expenditure limit for Lok Sabha. For Lok Sabha candidates contesting candidates who are contesting Lok Sabha elections. All right. Done. The spending limit for assembly constituencies, I am trying to dictate everything so that you have crisp and concise notes, even though I have this content in PPTs also. Okay, we will be referring to them as a side material. Primary source of your revision should be your class notes only, bacche. Now, for state legislative assemblies, the expenditure limit has been increased from all right, 28 to 40 lakh rupees depending from one state to another. Okay, so it is done by Election Commission after appointing the committee. It is done by the Election Commission after it appoints the ECI Committee on Expenditure Limit. Please write down this. Alright, so this is done as per cost inflation index. Cost inflation index, expenditure limit is increased as per cost inflation index. Cost inflation index takes into account 75% of the average rise in 75% of average rise 75% of the average rise in consumer price index urban, 75% of the average rise in consumer price index urban, average rise in consumer price index urban in the immediate preceding year. Please write down in the immediate preceding year. In the immediate preceding year. Alright, पिछले साल में. Now you have to be very careful about this thing, that we, to a common sense, to anybody with a common sense in UPSC, it would seem that how is it possible that taking into expenditure of immediately preceding year, it should be for 5 years, 6 years. No, but the fact of the matter is it is immediately preceding year. Clear? ठीक है, rest of the consumer price index details we are not going to go too deep into. This is enough for our purpose. Now, what happens is, how is the process taken forward? How does it start? Election Commission appoints a committee. Committee's appointment is one thing, right? Appointment of a committee is one thing. After the appointment of committee, what happens is, after the appointment of committee, ECI recommends it to Ministry of Law and Justice. Now, Ministry of Law and Justice is the administrative ministry under which Election Commission comes. ठीक है, MOLJ, Ministry of Law and Justice. Now, Ministry of Law and Justice notifies the amendment in Ministry of Law and Justice. It is MOLJ which notifies the amendment to notifies an amendment to Rule 90 of Conduct of Election Rules. Rule 90 of Conduct of Election Rules. Now we are studying the facts of the matter. After the facts are taken care of, you would see how मेरा कोशिश यहाँ पे objective endeavor ये है कि everything is taken care of. अभी आप ये देख रहे हो कि election expenditure limit है. फिर उसके बाद we are going to cover section 77 जो ये कहता है कि अगर कोई candidate, if a candidate does not submit the correct account of the expenses made by that candidate during the campaign, during the elections period, so that candidate would be liable to be disqualified. Disqualification tenure would be decided by the Election Commission of India. There have been cases like Narottam Mishra of Madhya Pradesh. He was the Home Minister or a senior minister, cabinet minister in the state government of Madhya Pradesh. He was disqualified under that. Then this leads us to another issue, that S.Y. Qureshi sir. S.Y. Qureshi has been an IAS officer and he has been the Chief Election Commissioner. He has written many editorials. I am going to tell you the sum of it, that elections are becoming quite costly. With each passing Lok Sabha, elections are becoming costlier, which is leading the political parties to choose candidates who are able to afford the election process, election expenditure, irrespective of the fact that whether they are the representative of the people in the true sense of the term. If somebody is coming from elite background, Jindal Steel, right, Rahul Gandhi, people who could afford election, would they be able to understand the problem of the masses? Does it make the representative democracy in true sense of the term? क्या ये सही मायने में लोकतंत्र है? ठीक है, तो वो चीजें उठती हैं. तो इसलिए अगला इशू इसका क्या आता है, पहले हमने इसके फैक्ट्स को पढ़ा. आफ्टर स्टडिंग द फैक्ट्स, द एनालिसिस सेज दैट since the electoral expenditure limit itself is saying this, but Law Commission, Association of Democratic Reforms, all these bodies, they have done their respective studies on the election expenditure. They say that India spends 3 to 5% of its GDP on conducting elections. This brings us to the solutions. What are the solutions? Solutions could be simultaneous elections. This is how you see every stroke of a pen here is leading to the full completion of the topic, right? Various aspects, simultaneous elections, but this is going to make the election affordable in one way, but its democratic cost is going to be very huge. Party wave phenomena, we are going to study that also. Second way could be public funding of election. Dinesh Goswami Committee, 1990s. Public funding means should the elections be funded from Consolidated Fund of India? Alright, so all these issues are intertwined. It is a bundle of reforms. That is why we are taking the ECI as a whole story. Election Commission of India, issues related to it. So issue based approach to current affairs will help you cover this issue in its entirety. Right, everybody? Okay, now that there's a bit of word of caution out here, since it is raining quite heavily these days, incessant rains, thanks to the rain gods, but you should be careful. If you are unable to commute, if you are unable to come to the center, that is fine, right? We will make necessary arrangements. I will be writing things in detail. I will be repeating them. I will be slow enough so that you are able to write down everything I say, and PDFs would be provided on time on the website. Handwritten notes, I will be slow in dictating so that even from home, online classes, you are able to catch up and you need not come here and face the unease of coming in the rainy season, right? So at the same time, request you to be safe. Don't unnecessarily go out because a lot of drainage system problems have been seen in the last few days, especially in NCR region, not in Delhi particularly. But now coming back here, okay, so these are the headings here we are going to cover. So we have covered the basic details about the poll expenditure limit. How is it revised? It is revised from time to time. It is revised by devising a cost inflation index. This cost inflation index takes 75% of the average increase. Now mind you, it takes into account 75% of only the average increase in the consumer price index of the preceding year. Okay, of the preceding year. How is it done? Statutorily, Rule 90 of the Conduct of Election Rules, 1961. Rule 90 of the Conduct of Election Rules, 1961. Now write down. अंडर सेक्शन 77 इसका फॉल आउट क्या है, रिलेटेड टॉपिक है, ये तो सोल्यूशन हो गए, ठीक है. अंडर सेक्शन 77 ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ पीपल्स एक्ट 1951. अच्छा, इसी से रिलेटेड एक जो टॉपिक्स और हैं, जैसे जैसे याद आते रहेंगे हम इसमें ऐड करते रहेंगे. वी हैव सो फार रिटन दीज मेनी इश्यूज, राइट. This brings us to another issue, transparency in the funding of political parties. अब हम जब अगली क्लासेस करेंगे करंट अफेयर्स की, चाहे वो नवंबर में हो, दिसंबर में हो, जनवरी में हो, तो दिस वी विल cover all these issues in next 5 to 6 classes. After that, if any new point arises, we will add it into this comprehensive list only. So you should be having the bunch of your current affairs notes arranged in a manner that there is enough space for us to update them at a later stage. Okay. Now under this there could be a subheading, that is electoral bonds. Okay. Then another issue is foreign funding of foreign donations to political parties. Under FCRA license, etc. Okay, so all these issues. Criminalization of politics would likewise have its subheadings. जैसे इसकी subheadings हैं, वैसे criminalization of politics की भी अपनी सब हेडिंग्स होंगी. क्लियर? ऑलराइट, सो अब हम आगे चल रहे हैं. सेक्शन 77. अंडर सेक्शन 77 ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ पीपल्स एक्ट 1951, एवरी कैंडिडेट शैल कीप अ सेपरेट एंड करंट अकाउंट ऑफ every candidate shall keep a separate and correct account of expenditure. All right, every candidate shall keep a correct account of expenditure. All the candidates are required to submit their expenditure statement to ECI. All candidates are required to submit their expenditure statement to the ECI. Submit their expenditure statement to the ECI within 30 days of the completion of the elections. Within 30 days of the completion of the elections. All the candidates are required to submit their expenditure statement to the ECI within 30 days. ठीक है, अगर कोई नहीं करेगा, if somebody gives a false account or somebody spends beyond the limit, then Election Commission, utilizing the powers under section 77, can disqualify the said candidate. It can disqualify the said candidates. ठीक है? An incorrect account of expenditure beyond the cap. An incorrect account or expenditure, an incorrect account, गलत ब्यौरा देना या expenditures को ज़्यादा खर्च करना. An incorrect account or expenditure beyond the cap, beyond the upper limit, can lead to disqualification of the candidate, can lead to disqualification of the candidate, can lead to disqualification of the candidate for up to 3 years. How much? Incorrect account अगर कोई देगा, maximum 3 years. Incorrect account or expenditure beyond the cap. Maximum 3 years के लिए disqualified. Okay, they can be disqualified for maximum 3 years. ठीक है, अब एक आयरनिकल चीज है, थोड़ा सा बात को समझना. थोड़ा सा असमंजस की स्थिति है, आयरनिकल है कि देयर इज नो एक्सपेंडिचर लिमिट ऑन पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, देयर इज नो एक्सपेंडिचर लिमिट ऑन पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज. There is no expenditure limit on political parties. ठीक है, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के ऊपर कोई लिमिट नहीं है. However, all the registered political parties, are required to submit a statement of their election expenditure. However, all the registered political parties are required to submit a statement of their election expenditure, are required to submit a statement of their election expenditure, are required to submit a statement of their election expenditure to the ECI within 90 days. Within 90 days from the completion of elections. Within 90 days of the completion of the elections. Okay, within 90 days of the completion of elections. Political party के लिए it is 90 days, and for other candidates, individual candidates, it is 30 days. Right? Now, as I said that various committees and commissions have said that 3 to 5% of India's GDP every year is spent on conduct of elections. Sometimes it is state elections, right? Sometimes it is national level general Lok Sabha elections. During the Lok Sabha elections especially, the expenditure shoots up to 5% of GDP. Black and white both included. As per second ARC, to conduct elections to Lok Sabha, 75 crore rupees is needed. To conduct elections to Legislative Assembly, MLA elections, 25 crores is needed. Okay, this is what they spend. But this is what is reported. What is reported is just a tip of the iceberg, right? If you see the actual expenditure, it is 75 crore rupees by MP candidate and 25 crore by MLA candidate, right? So such is the gap. And on the top of it, political parties are funding the election separately. They are spending separately. Political parties expenditure is not counted into this. This is by second ARC, unofficial or official estimate, right? Now this brings us to the question, if we are working in an issue based manner, हम अगले पड़ाव पे आते हैं. If we come to the next issue, what is next issue? Next issue is, should state funding of elections be explored? Should there be state funding of elections? Right? So there have been various committees on this. Okay, so Dinesh Goswami committee number 1. So first committee was Dinesh Goswami committee. Dinesh Goswami sir was the law minister in 1990. ठीक है. Then Indrajit Sen Gupta committee. Indrajit Sen committee. Okay, so it was Indrajit Sen committee. 1990 Indrajit Gupta committee या इंद्रजीत गुप्ता ही कहेंगे, सेन नहीं कहेंगे. ठीक है. इंद्रजीत गुप्ता committee, it was 1998 Indrajit Gupta committee. Third one is Law Commission. Law Commission was 1999. Law Commission report 1999. Then last one was NCRWC, National Commission to Review the Working of Constitution 2000. ये 1999. Okay. What is state funding of elections? What is the idea behind state funding of elections? State funding of election means a system. State funding of elections means a system where the state, bracket में consolidated fund, where the state bears the expenses on, elections, and political parties are prohibited from taking funds from other sources. And political parties are prohibited from taking funds from other sources. Okay, so in Germany and Australia, state funding of elections is there. All right, state funding of elections is there in Germany and Australia. Is this clear? Sorry, Germany and Austria. Please write correctly. Germany and Austria. Okay, so first one, write down. इंद्रजीत गुप्ता कमेटी लिख लो. दिनेश गोस्वामी कमेटी, दिनेश गोस्वामी कमेटी थोड़ा ज्यादा पुरानी हो गई. इंद्रजीत गुप्ता कमेटी टू क्रिएट, नंबर वन, इट्स रिकमेंडेशंस. ठीक है. इंद्रजीत गुप्ता कमेटी सेड टू क्रिएट अ लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड फॉर पार्टीज विद लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज. टू क्रिएट level playing field for parties with limited resources, state funding of elections should be considered. यानी कि आम आदमी पार्टी जैसी नई पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हैं, एक फ्रेश स्ट्रीम ऑफ थॉट को लेके आती हैं, नई आइडियोलॉजी को जन्म देती हैं, तो उनको कंसिडर करना चाहिए. क्लियर? टू क्रिएट अ लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड फॉर पार्टीज विद लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज, इंद्रजीत गुप्ता कमेटी रिकमेंडेड स्टेट फंडिंग ऑफ इलेक्शंस. The committee advised placing two restrictions on state funding. The committee advised placing two restrictions on state funding. Okay, the committee advised placing two restrictions. Shall I dictate? Number 1, only national and state parties with a symbol should receive state funding. Only national and state parties. State funding of elections is the topic. ठीक है, only national and state political parties should receive the funding. Independent candidates should not be given funding. Now, there seems to be a contradiction in the committee's own recommendations. On one hand, it is saying to create a level playing field between the new and emerging political parties. But at the same time, it is not ready to support, Indrajit Gupta committee is not ready to support individual new candidates. Independent candidates are not supported, but parties are supported, right? So we can find the logic in the recommendation that individual candidates, they splurge money, or that would lead to wastage of money and there would be no consolidated mandate. But if it is a party, अगर एक पूरी पार्टी चुनाव लड़ रही होगी, then people's mandate getting converted into a government, the likelihood is more. Likelihood of a party contesting election, please keep scribbling, थोड़ा बहुत लिख लेना. Parties, independent party contesting the election and being funded by the state, the likelihood of such independent party converting the people's mandate into the government formation is more than individual candidates, independent candidates contesting elections, right? So it is saying that independent candidates should not be individual candidates, and independent individual candidates who do not belong to any party, both of them should not be funded. Okay, so why state funding is important? State funding is important, but it is because it is believed that politicians indulge in money minting, politicians indulge in money bribe, etc., corruption, because they have to fund for their election. If state funding of elections would be there, honest politicians would not have to seek funds, ill-gotten funds. Okay, but this is more of a saintly or saintly advice in the present times, right? When public offices are becoming a way to not just power corridor but also the corridor of money. When we see the assets of our MPs and MLAs climbing up by 400%, 500%, there is no reason that state funding of election should be looked at. Okay, so जब इतना ज़्यादा करप्शन देखने को मिल रही है तो ये सारी चीज़ें theoretical हो जाती हैं, but फिर भी we have to cover this topic. Additionally, secondly, only recognized political parties and their candidates should get the short-term state funding in kind funding. In kind funding of political parties in the form of specific infrastructure. Cash funding they are discouraging. They are saying कि झंडे, flags हैं, banners हैं, posters हैं, वो छपवा के दे दो, offices दे दो, right? Public office for political party, that could be done. The committee noted that at the time of the report, nation's economic climate was only conducive to partial. Nation's economic climate was conducive to partial state funding, not full state funding. Now, this is not quite sane recommendation. This is not quite good an recommendation. Why? Partial में कितना partial? How would you get to know about the remaining? This defeats the very logic. This defeats the logic. Okay, why? Because we are considering state funding of elections because a lot of ill-gotten money, corruption से generate हुआ पैसा election में use होता है. तो अगर partial funding of election होगा भी, how would we stop the tap? How would we stop the tap of ill-gotten money leading into the elections? या तो complete ban होना चाहिए या complete private spending. There is no midway. There is no Buddha's middle path. Is this logic clear to all of you? Okay. Now, Law Commission report on electoral reforms 1999. This was the first thing that we dealt with. Then we are moving towards Law Commission report. See, the likelihood of this particular topic being asked in the exam is very less. But as a UPSC aspirant, you should be knowing this because एक हिस्ट्री पढ़ना करंट अफेयर्स के पर्सपेक्टिव से, करंट अफेयर्स इलेक्टोरल रिफॉर्म्स की हिस्ट्री पढ़ना जरूरी हो जाता है, राइट? (1999) Law Commission. Number 1, state funding of elections is desirable. State funding of elections is desirable as long as political parties are not allowed to accept money from other sources, are not allowed to accept money from other sources. So if you compare Indrajit Gupta committee's recommendation with the National Law Commission, this is more sane. This advice seems to be more logical because then political parties would not be having a parallel channel of money flowing into elections. The idea is to cleanse the electoral money landscape, cleansing of electoral funding landscape. ठीक है, तो ये दिस स्ट्राइक्स एट द रूट कॉज कि अगर करना है तो पूरा करो वरना मत करो, राइट? लॉ कमीशन स्ट्रांगली रिकमेंडेड, सेकंड, strongly recommended a regulatory mechanism. Law Commission strongly recommended a regulatory mechanism should be put in place. A regulatory mechanism should be put in place यानी कि ये पता क्या कह रहे हैं, दैट पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज को रेगुलेट करना चाहिए, देयर शुड बी अ प्रॉपर लॉ, FCRA etc. My recommendations, I'll give you my set of recommendations after all this is finished, maybe in the next class. Okay, so regulatory framework should be there. Then third, the commission agreed with the Indrajit Gupta committee. The third point, the commission agreed with the Indrajit Gupta committee. The commission agreed with the Indrajit Gupta committee recommendation that given the current economic situation of the nation, only partial public funding ओनली पार्शियल पब्लिक असिस्टेंस और फंडिंग वॉज प्रैक्टिकेबल। ठीक है, ये कह रहे हैं कि फुल टर्म लॉन्ग टर्म गोल ये होना चाहिए कि फुल फंडिंग होनी चाहिए, बट करंट इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन को देखते हुए ये करना चाहिए। दोनों कमीशन ने यही कहा था। ठीक है, करंट इकोनॉमिक सिचुएशन। Looking at the current economic situation, 1998 में we barely had enough GDP, enough money flowing into the consolidated fund of India. इतना ज़्यादा हमारा 2.5 ट्रिलियन डॉलर GDP नहीं होता था, राइट? 1 ट्रिलियन डॉलर से भी नीचे थे हम। Now coming to NCRWC, National Commission to Review the Working of Constitution, Third Committee on State Funding of Elections. National Commission to Review the Working of Constitution, Venkatachalya Commission as we call it. Venkatachalya, ठीक है, this was 2000, year 2000, National Commission to Review the Working. Now it did not endorse state funding of elections. It did not endorse state funding of elections. It agreed with the 1999 Law Commission report. It agreed with the 1999 Law Commission report that appropriate legal framework needs to be created. अब देखो अप्रोप्रिएट लीगल फ्रेमवर्क में क्या क्या चीजें हम कवर करेंगे। एज आई टोल्ड यू दैट इन द कोर्स ऑफ माय पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन स्टडी ऑफ माय ओन ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट, आई हैव गॉन थ्रू ऑल द लॉ कमीशन रिपोर्ट्स, 170th लॉ कमीशन रिपोर्ट, देन 255th रिपोर्ट दैट केम इन द ईयर 2015। ठीक है, so we as a part of our study when we are in our third or fourth attempt of UPSC writing mains, we have to do the value addition. I am talking about my personal thing, my own preparation journey. So we had to go through these bulky reports because we wanted to improve our marks in public administration, GS mains, paper 2 and other arenas. So law commission यहाँ पे क्या कहना चाह रहा है? पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज को इंटरनल डेमोक्रेसी लानी पड़ेगी। पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के फंड पैसा जो है एस्क्रो अकाउंट में जाएगा, राइट, या इन काइंड होगा या कैश होगा, और फंडिंग के ऊपर कंप्लीट बैन होना चाहिए। अपनी तरफ से कोई पॉलिटिकल पार्टी कहीं से पैसा डोनेशन, कॉर्पोरेट डोनेशंस नहीं लेगी, राइट? ओके, नाउ सेकंड ARC 2008. What did second ARC say on this? Second Administrative Reforms Commission report, Ethics in Governance, 2008. 2008 advocated partial state funding of elections to cut down on, advocated partial state funding of elections. Partial state funding of elections to cut down on illegitimate and excessive funding of election cost. To cut down on illegitimate and excessive funding of election costs. Done? ठीक है, सो ये चीजें हो गई. नाउ राइट डाउन द लास्ट हेडिंग फॉर द डे, बेनिफिट्स ऑफ स्टेट फंडिंग ऑफ इलेक्शंस. व्हाट आर गोइंग टू बी द बेनिफिट्स ऑफ स्टेट फंडिंग ऑफ इलेक्शंस? Benefits of state funding of elections. Candidates with, now सबसे पहले लिखो monetization and criminalization of elections और politics. ठीक है, मोनेटाइजेशन मतलब जिसके पास पैसा है, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी उसको टिकट दे देती है कि ये तो अपना इलेक्शन पैसे खर्च के जीत ही जाएगा. विद द पावर ऑफ मनी, द कैंडिडेट हु इज रिच इनफ, इवन दो ही इज नॉट अ, he might not be a legitimate public representative, he has got an elite bias, he comes from the rich strata of society, but political party knows that because of his money power he would be able to tilt the balance in his favor. ठीक है, and if somebody is a criminal, political party knows that his criminal antecedents, his bahubali raj, gunda raj, through his power of muscle he would be able to tilt the balance in his favor. ठीक है, पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज पैसे के चलते या दबदबे के चलते इनसे दबती हैं, ऐसे कैंडिडेट्स को अपने साथ लेना चाहती हैं. एग्जाम्पल शहाबुद्दीन, पप्पू यादव, अतीक अहमद, है ना, बिकॉज दे गिव अ लॉट ऑफ मनी. Criminals also, they bring a lot of money to the political parties' coffers. State funding of elections will stop this to a great extent. Since, second point, since candidates won't be, since political party won't be overly dependent on the candidates for funding. अब political party क्या करती है? आम आदमी पार्टी 2017 पंजाब elections, there were allegations of आम आदमी पार्टी selling the ticket for MLA at a price of 3 to 5 crore rupees. आम आदमी party was selling the ticket of MLA elections for 3 to 5 crore rupees. This makes the political party dependent on the candidate. Mayawati, Bahujan Samajwadi Party, she was alleged to have, BSP is alleged to have collected 5 crore to 10 crore rupees per MLA ticket in 2004 elections, UP Assembly, right? Sorry, 2002 UP Assembly elections. Okay, 2002 to 2007 it was Mayawati in power. Since political parties won't be overly dependent on the party, on the candidate, since political party won't be overly dependent on the candidates for funding, since political parties won't be overly dependent on candidates for funding, parties will become more democratic internally. Party democracy. Got it? So this is there. Now, state funding ensures that some influential people or groups don't have undue influence. State funding of elections ensures that some influential people, यानी कि crony capitalism, business lobbying, ठीक है, crony capitalism, business lobbying, business lobbying would be checked to a large extent. अभी क्या हो रहा है, हमने प्राइवेट फंडिंग ऑफ पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज ज्यादा कर दी. अदानी, अंबानी, रिलायंस, टाटा, ये जो बड़े बड़े ट्रस्ट हैं, ये पॉलिटिकल पार्टी को पैसा देके पॉलिटिकल फेवर्स, पॉलिसी फेवर्स लेती हैं. पॉलिसी वुड बी मेड इन देयर फेवर, राइट? तो ये नहीं होगा अगर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी को स्टेट फंडिंग ऑफ इलेक्शंस मिलेगा. इंडिया इज बिकमिंग अ कैपिटलिस्ट डेमोक्रेसी. प्लीज राइट डाउन. India has become a capitalist democracy. India has become a capitalist democracy. State funding of elections, continuity में, ठीक है. स्टेट फंडिंग ऑफ इलेक्शंस ensures that it can, state funding of elections can break up the corporate political nexus. ठीक है, कॉर्पोरेट पॉलिटिकल नेक्सस, बिजनेस नेक्सस, कि अदानी को इतने पैसे दो, अदानी बदले में 6 एयरपोर्ट देगा. एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पोस्ट्स आर सोल्ड फॉर 3 crore rupees per district, 5 crore rupees per district for 1 year. If an SSP is paying 5 crore rupees, he would get a plum posting, good posting, from where he can recover that money, right? If an IAS officer is paying 5 crore rupees, he will get a district where sand mining is rampant, illegal sand mining. So he will collect the money from sand mafia, cable TV mafia, sand mafia, road mafia, right? तो ये सारी पानी माफिया, तो these टैंकर पानी के भरे जाते हैं फ्री में नदियों से, right? So these kind of things will stop. The auctioning of public administrative postings for the sake of funding of political party would stop. Clear? So ये सारी चीजें रुकेंगी. पैसे का नहीं, साफ सुथरे दामन वाले नेताओं का योगदान चाहिए. People with a statesperson's outlook are needed in politics, not the people with currency, right? We are selling out the public policy making to private entrepreneurs. Ambani, Uncle Murli Deora, he was a petroleum minister. He was their uncle. When they were kids, Murli Deora used to take them to Juhu Beach in Mumbai. Fast forward to 2012-13, Murli Deora became petroleum minister. So uncle had grown in political stature, so was the kids. So Anil Ambani and Mukesh Ambani, petroleum, Reliance Petroleum, petroleum minister making the policy at the behest of Ambani brothers or Ambani elder brother Mukesh Ambani. Such is the political nexus. Uncle Murli Deora used to play Murli flute according to the tunes of Mukesh Ambani led Reliance Petroleum, and this is happening even today also. If you read today's editorial on petroleum, on yuan and China, whose analysis I have done, you would see that Reliance Petroleum is benefiting from the cheaper priced, from the cheap crude oil being purchased from Russia. All right, so all these issues are leading to policy sellout, policy sellout. Policy process is being sold out to the big corporates. All right, so this phenomena should stop now. Reliance Petroleum, Adani, ये सारा जो नेक्सस है ये रुकना चाहिए. ये कैसे रुकेगा? अगर कंप्लीट स्टॉपिंग ऑफ कॉर्पोरेट फंडिंग होगी. नॉट ओनली दिस, फंडिंग बाय फॉरेन फर्म्स, foreign firms like Amazon, etc. As per the amendment by the Finance Act, political parties are now free to receive funding from the foreign companies. So this is leading to foreign business interest guiding our policy on issues like e-commerce. Okay, e-commerce rules for FDI in retail or FDI in e-commerce. All this is leading to jeopardizing or compromising with the interest of domestic electorate. Alright, in a country where around 25 to 28% are still below poverty line, this kind of a phenomena just for the sake of political funding is not acceptable. Okay, so this is there. Done? So this is there. Now we'll stop it here today for today, guys. Next heading is, please write down the next heading, arguments against state funding of elections. All these points are going to be of the jewel quality, of the good quality, right? जैसे jewels होते हैं ना, pearls होते हैं, तो उस quality के points मैं लिखवा रहा हूँ. Do keep them handy, keep on revising them. We will complete this entire topic of electoral reforms in the next 5 classes. Thank you. It was a pleasure teaching you. We'll meet again in this current affairs class. Bye bye, guys.